Let's make some money.
And we're going to try and make some money tonight. And here's the disclaimer. Trading foreign exchange on margin carries a high level of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. The high degree of leverage can work against you as well as for you. Before deciding to invest in foreign exchange, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. The possibility exists that you could sustain a loss of some or all of your initial investment, and therefore you should not invest money that you cannot afford to lose. You should be aware of all the risks associated with the foreign exchange trading and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. Tonight is Wednesday. I believe this is September 16th. This is a 9:30 to 11 o'clock session. We'll see how long it goes. Depending on how much activity we have and how much interaction we have with everybody, and we'll decide if it will keep on going for how long we go. This is a live trading room. It is for educational purposes only. No financial advice or recommendations will be provided. And trades taken during the live session is not a recommendation or suggestion that you should do the same. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Do not trade money you cannot afford to lose. And before trading live, always operate with a written trade plan that identifies the rules for entries, exits, targets, and risk management. We have Brian and I've got Christine here with us tonight. So let's go to the charts. Now we got the disclaimer out of the way. And for starters, we have, it's a lot of red folders tonight.
I was just looking at that.
And we're seeing some pretty strong moves for, I'm a little surprised to see these stronger moves this time of night, actually. But we have a lot of red folder, starting at 2 o'clock, we had a lot of U.S. red folders. And we had another one at 6:45 tonight, 9:30, New Zealand, Aussie, all red folder events. So we'll probably see we may see some volatility that we haven't already with the New Zealand, the Aussie. We'll pay particular attention to those and see if there's some trades that develop. And then also the U.S., which all of our pairs are pretty much that the alerts are on are all part of the U.S. pairs. So we go to our charts and we see that we had the last alert we have was the US CAD at 8 o'clock. It was an ascending wedge. And I've got that drawn. And you can see this was, you pretty much would have had to be right sitting on the computer when the alert happened to be able to catch that move. And so here's how I drew it. This was kind of a difficult one to draw, actually, because we had a lot of strong wicks. So I'm going to go to my 15-minute chart. And we can see that this is the new day break over here. So this is all the action that happened between these two blue lines. This was the action of during the daytime. So if we were looking for the previous pivot high and pivot low, we have this wick right here. And I'm thinking that had to do with that announcement at 2:30 this afternoon. So we can't ignore the wick, but right now we can't really, I don't see how we can really put that into the equation with the wedge. So I'm really going to be looking at the basic market movement, and I'm going to be looking at this pivot low. It was ascending, so I'm going to start my A way over here. And I'm going to start my MIB up here at the, let me move this out of the way so we can see what we're doing. Up here at the top pivot, you see there's another pivot way over here. This was just a little bit of a, if I take this all the way over to this, which was 2 days ago, you can see it made a lower low, couple consecutive lower lows. So I'm just going to note this area as a supply zone where the price came up, dropped away, came up, sort of retested again. And so this was the area that I was looking at for this price to go up to if we had a chance to get into the trade. You can see it's actually already developed in that. So, but here's our pivot low. Here's a pivot high from yesterday's price action. And we can put a trend line. And I'm trying to look for a trend line where I can get an anchor, a hit, and then another hit somewhere along the way before we get to the alert. Now I'm going to slide this D over. Now you can see where this B and the D are pretty much right on the same level. It's pretty much almost the exact same point. So I'm going to move this over to here, which is a significant pivot high before the alert. I'm going to slide this B over here. You can see it's actually still a little bit below this one. So we still have a high. Here's a low. Here's a high. We have a higher low. We have a lower high. This was the retest of the trend line. So we have an anchor. Here's a hit. And then we have this, another lower pivot high before we get to the alert. From the bottom, we have a pivot low. Here we have the A. Now we have a hit here, we have it here, but now this whole area right here was a breach, and this is due to that announcement. So the only thing I can really look to do is the fact that we had the announcement at 2:30. I'm going to use this lower high for a reference before the alert. This is my bigger wedge. Now, what we've been doing is we've been drawing secondary wedges inside. So we look at the 50-minute chart, we get the major pivot highs, major pivot lows. We have and try and validate the trend. So we have a valid trend line here because we have a B. This is a high, a lower high. Here's a lower high, slight wick up, and then we have this. So we have an anchor, a hit, and a hit, all before the trend. And the bottom, we have the anchor, a hit. This is actually, there's a hit here, there's a hit here. I'm going to take it all the way down to the bottom of this blue candle. I'm going to note that we have there's prices, there's some action down here, but right now I can see where they broke this green trend line, which I drew from way back over to the left, and it didn't get a close. So I'm just going to note the wick on this one because this was an announcement. You get a lot of those volatile moves, and then we have the vertical line for the actual alert. Now you can see that we had the strong move up. This is from the announcement. That was at 2:30, I believe, this afternoon. And so now, right now, we had a strong move up, and now here's another little trend. So this is going to be the one that we're really going to focus on. But we have to but we want to note that we have a major trend coming up here. So if we had this alert, we knew we still had to get a close above this D. I want to say a close above the D area before I would want to be taking it long. So I'm going to come to a lower time frame chart, and I'm going to tweak these points. I'm just going to keep this one here, a little bit of a area. I'm going to, the fact we had this big move right here, I'm going to slide this one over to this candle here, and we have a little bit of a hit here. So we have the A, here's a hit, big move up, made the D, and then we have some basing right in here. So here's where I'm going to draw that secondary wedge. This one's going to be a lot more usable than the other one, but we need these higher time frame, the orange area, to determine where our target zones are going to be or where our breakout zones are going to be. So now I'm going to be looking at this other area in here. So I'm going to draw another wedge. And it was ascending, so I'm going to take this little wick right here. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to come back up to the D. I'm going to come down to this area right here, and I'm going to tuck this in as close to where the alert was that I can. And I'm going to slide this one over and see if I can have a low, a high, a higher, no, excuse me. Here's a low, a high, a higher low from the A lower high from the B, and then we have, so this is where the alert all happened. Going to come down to a 1-minute chart, and we're going to pretty much tweak it again. And so I'm going to tuck this in as close as I can, and I'm going to tuck this one still looks good. And so we're looking to see, am I going to get a close above the D, which we did on this 1-minute chart. I'm going to back this off to a 5-minute because the 1 minute sometimes will give you a little bit of a whipsaw, but there was some price that came up and it was rejected. So right now from the higher time frame wedge and the secondary wedge that we have, we did get the close right here in the middle of the D. And as we look through in our RSIs, we're looking to see where we had a nice little pullback along this area, came up, gave us a hook, gave us another hook, pulled back, and then we had the break, and everything was moving in the up direction. I go to my 5-minute chart, and I can see where, as we had the alert, all of our moving averages were still moving the up direction on the 5-minute, still moving the up direction on the 15, and on the 15-minute chart, our RCS tool, this is one we chose the strength of the move. We show that there's a 5-point spread. Right now we have a 5-point spread on the US to CAD. US is the first currency of the pair. That's the number 7. So that tells us we know that there's strength to the US, which means there's strength to the upside. And so we're looking for the breakout. If we look on our 5-minute chart, we see we had the breakout. And you had roughly, from the time you had the alert, you had roughly 5 minutes to make all this happen at 8 o'clock tonight. Came in, broke, got a 5-minute close above the orange trend line. All of our moving averages are moving in the right direction on the 5-minute chart. All of our moving averages, let's see where they are on the 15. All of our moving averages are, that's 1 minute here. Let me get back this up here a little bit. Let's see where the moving averages are on the 15-minute chart. On the 15-minute chart, we have our 62, our 13, and our 5, all in the right direction for the breakout, our size moving up, and there was the breakout of the trade. Take the trade, and you have, this was a nice little move here, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From the break here to here, we had 22 pips up to went right up into our supply zone that we made from looking way back to the left of the chart to see where price came from. Any questions?
Don't see any in the chat box and don't see any in the Q&A. So,
any comments, Brian?
No, it's been a while since I've watched it. It's almost the same thing you've been doing in the past.
Yeah. One thing I've been
the strategy stays consistent.
We've made a few little changes probably since you've been here, Brian. And let me just explain what that is. We've been seeing a lot of range-bound trades, and what's been happening is we've been getting a lot of times, by the time we get the break of the major wedge, half the move is already gone, and a lot of times we'll go and it'll come up here, it'll just trap us. Right. So what we've been doing is we've been drawing the secondary wedge using the higher time frame, which is my orange wedge that I draw. I use previous pivot highs and pivot lows. I may go back usually within a day or a day, and sometimes we go as back as far as I need to find out where the pivots are. Most of the time I can do it within the day before. And so we try and find those ranges and see, because what's happened a lot of times is by the time we would get into the trade in a breakthrough, it was a trap, and then all we do is come back and retest the other side. Right. Or break out of the bottom and then come back and retest. So what I was looking for is the secondary wedge inside the bigger move, and try and catch that breakout of the secondary wedge, and hoping, and with the idea that we can get a couple extra pips, get our spread, get a couple extra pips before the break, and by the time it breaks and confirms the break, or doesn't confirm the break, you're still in and out of the trade with your 5 or 7 pips.
Is your interior wedge normally that precise on the exterior wedge, or is it sometimes a little bit more in the middle?
A lot of times it's a little bit more. Most of the time it's a little bit more in the middle.
Is your B's? Is that B's? Yeah, it's your C and B or D and B.
It's a D and B right there.
Yeah, they're pretty much in line with each other. So
these are.
When you had the break of the smaller one below, and it breaks the second one. That's a pretty good confirmation too. That's your move that you're looking for overall. Right. But it may never,
Exactly. And if this thing would have broken from the bottom, you can see that we would have had a lot of room if we had everything was going to break to the downside. Now we've already come up to the upper part of the wedge. It was already tested. And a lot of times you're going to see that when the wedge alert happens, you see a really strong move to the upside or a strong move to the downside. And to be able to draw that wedge off the main pivot, there was a lot of gap in there. And that's why I started drawing these secondary wedges. So if it were to break from there to the downside, if you would have had the same confirmation to the downside as you did to the upside, you would have been already up 27 pips before you ever got to the bottom of the wedge. And when you see the strong blue candle coming up off, which is what formed this. Now this is pretty unusual because again, this was an announcement. I think that's why we had such, this was a strong move within these two 15-minute candles. We had a range of 50 pips all within 30 minutes. The normal 15-minute
Was there a
range.
US or a CAD announcement tonight?
It was at 2:30. That was the, see, this was at, what time was it? This was at 2,
This may just be a moment.
2:30.
This,
That was,
okay. So what you had an announcement early,
yeah,
and
this was this
the
afternoon.
announcement caused it to just continue to
Right.
go.
It was an FOMC press conference that they had. So and that's where that move came from. Now, what's interesting is the same pair. No, this is, no, you're US. That was, there was an announcement on the US with crude oil inventory at 10:30 this morning. And I'll show you what happened with that just before the announcement. So anyway, so this is how we're starting to play these things. And I'm also looking to see where this major trend line is, the orange trend line, which is where the B and the D basically, they just overlay each other. What I want to be seeing is I want to be seeing a close above, because what usually is, this is a wick up to make that point. Well, there's some other bodies of candles along here. There's a body over here. So what I'm trying to do is find out, I want to see it break where the B is, because that's the next previous pivot high. Now we could use this one right here, or we could use the B, either one. But I'm going to see a close above the B and have a wick above the B, but also get a close inside this gap where the orange and the break was. To there, because this way, because what it does is that we have this is the highest close before before this last hit. So really, there's a little range right here. So I want to see a close above the wedge, and I want to see a close above this body, because that means that you've got a little bit more push, a little higher close, which means you're looking at the trend maybe starting to develop to the upside.
And then you're still looking at your RCS tool for momentum move.
And still looking at the RCS for the momentum tool to confirm that the trade is gaining the momentum.
Well, it's you kind of doing it almost, for me, I'm looking at you doing just what I do pretty much. You're anticipating. I was telling Al earlier today when we were trading, I'm still trading with the AIRIS, using it a little bit differently because of my schedule. I get up around 4:30. I look at the RCS tool, go do some errands, and then come back and look at the RCS tool, compare if there's any movement. So for instance, if we're looking at it right now, the US is number 7 and Kiwi is 0. In the morning, what I've been doing is I've been looking at that chart, identifying that range, that wedge range, and if it fits within the parameters, I enter on a momentum trade for my 7 pips prior to the wedge announcement, basically what's happening. It's still wedge trading. It's just prior to the signal being sent, so I'm catching it a little bit early, looking back on what the range has been, just like Alex did with the range on his high side there. I've been pretty successful at that too.
Yeah, one thing to be really careful, like in a random time. I mean, you're looking at pretty much right when the British or the London market is opening up, and you're seeing where the strength is. Now, if you were to see this, if you just go into the chart and you see this move like this with the momentum being so strong, you'd have to try and figure out where is my next area that it's going to probably bounce from. Now, in this particular case, what I did was I went on to a higher time frame chart, and I'll start with a 1 hour probably is where I usually, and I'll slide over here and see
what's left. Yeah.
What's left. Go look to the left, and you see, okay, here's where I started. This was today's trading range. This is a new day right now, belong to this blue line. This was today's trading range. Here is this would have been, today's Wednesday. This would have been Monday. This is Wednesday. This would have been Tuesday. This would have been Monday. But you can see where, and I'm just looking, just eyeballing, it's basically going sideways inside of a range. But where is the highest pivot high that I was looking at? And so trying to tuck this in, I'm looking at, here's a point, here's a point, here's a point. Now, if I were to take this trend line, put it over here, and take my D, let me just take this, get my D, and you can see that this D is lower than where the B is. So there is a high. Here's the next low. Actually, there's another low over here, which is a little bit lower, so I could actually pull this back all the way over here. And that's where I drew this. What I've been doing is I've been taking a different color, just a straight trend line on these major pivot areas for the last couple of days and just marking them. And so if I were to just take all this, let me just take this all off here. And I'd be looking at this pivot high. So now I have I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to slide this on up to this area. And I'm just going to draw a trend line. And I see where I have an anchor. Here's a nice hit. Here's a nice hit. And here's actually where it broke. But now from this area right now, I'm looking to see if there's anything over here that tells me I'm looking for these really big, long, extended range candles. And what I'm looking to see is that if it were to break this wick right here, and if I just goes from this wick over here, if I just slide a line right over here, where am I going to come up? I meet another wick, so I'm going to come on up until I meet a body. Once I meet the body, this is going to be the new area that I'm looking at as being a supply zone. But it's going to have to get through this wick. So we have this wick because when this candle came down, it based and it went right up into, actually didn't really, this is right about where, so here's the basing candle right here, this little blue candle right in here. So this is where I'm looking at, this is the supply zone that this has to get through. And it's been trending, it got up into this area, it hit it here, went up a little bit deeper, and then it started to break off. And now it's coming back and retesting this. Now that it broke that, where's it going to go next? So this is, I would have been looking at this as being a target area. I'm surprised it went through this time of night, but that was, again, there was some announcements going on. So I'm coming over here, where's my next target going to be? It's up here by this yellow line. Now I'm looking at this whole candle area. Here's the peak of the biggest move before it went down. And as it broke and started to come down, we had this blue candle, came down, broke, came back up and retested that area right to there. So now this is now my new supply zone that I'm looking at, that I want to be paying attention to for the price to come to. Now that it broke this area that we had down here, is probably going to come on up looking to this. And once it comes up here, I'm going to start looking for some shorts. But you can see that this whole range in between here, from this area all the way down, it was just basing going sideways, and now it's getting a break to retest this. Once it gets up here, it's either going to break through higher. My suspicion is it's going to break down and come back down lower. You can come over to the left and see if there's anything else coming over. And you do have some other areas. But this is all the way back in August, where this area was being challenged. So that's all I can say about the analysis on this U.S. Swiss. On the euro we had today earlier, now this was kind of fun. We actually took this trade and we did it really well with it. But over here this was today's trade. We had an alert up here at what time was that? It was at 7:30 or 9:30 this morning. But we had a news announcement at 10:30. And so whenever we get the news announcement during the day, we have to be very careful to trade it. But oftentimes what we're seeing is before the announcement, people in the know already know what's going to happen. They always start making the move. And this move happened before. This is on a 5-minute chart. This move at 10:30 was the announcement, so nobody should know anything about it. But right here we got the alert, we got the break right past it, and it bounced around, and then it just tanked and came right down to a target zone that we drew out from way over here earlier on. Came down, hit right on the pip of it, came back. That was our trade for the day. Then we decided to just let it go. And we had we don't have, let's see, we did have another announcement. What was the last one we had here? We had one at 7:15 this evening. Go back over here to the euro. And all these target zones are still in play. Now this one got blown through here. We had the wick. Let me just put this up here. So 7:15. I'm just going to do a replay on this since we have the ability. If we see any other alerts come in, let me know.
You got it.
But we'll just do a replay on this. And so at 7:15 this morning, or this evening, we had an alert. It was an ascending wedge. So again, I'm looking to see where the previous pivot high and pivot lows are. Now, this purple line up here, this is a high time frame trend line. And those are becoming targets to me. And we're talking very high time frame. We're talking, this thing started, I took this back on, I think I took it back on a 4-hour chart, maybe.
Yeah.
4-hour, was it?
I believe so.
No, let me see where we at. Let's go a little bit more here. Let's see, where did it go? Let me just take all this off here. And so here I'm looking to see on the higher time frame, where's the trend coming from? So I'm looking right up in here. So I'm going to take my trend tool, and I'm just going to draw it. I'm going to align some wicks and see if I can get 3 hits. So I have an anchor. Here's a little bit of a hit. Now, on a higher time frame, that's probably a little bit more than what we would normally like, but you can see where the body didn't close above the trend. It wicked up there. So there's an anchor, there's a hit, there's a hit. This trend line is valid. If I look on the lower time, on the bottom part, I'm looking to see where I have a anchor. Oops. I have an anchor, a hit, and right now I'm still waiting for my 3rd hit somewhere out in this area. So this is the area that the prices are trading in. We had the alert at 7:15. Why am I losing this? Let's see, where is my... At 7:15 we had the alert. Make this yellow. And so now I'm going to use this point right here. I'm going to use this one to, actually, I see where it's sort of flatlined right here. This is a new day, and we don't have a lot of price movement here, but we did get an alert. But it's basically what it's looking at. It's probably looking at this flat top here and another slightly trend coming on up. So we're just going to draw the wedge from that direction. And I'm going to take it from the bottom. It was ascending. I'm going to take it up to a pivot high, a higher low, now I want to see a flat or lower high. So I'm going to take it over to something that makes sense. And I'm going to take it right over to the top of this red candle where these wicks are, because this is where all the price action was. So I'm just going to take it over here, and I'm going to use this for my wedge. I'm going to tuck it in as close as I can. Now I'm going to actually the fact that we have this bigger wedge area here, I'm going to be looking at as my primary. I'm going to come down to a 5-minute chart. And I'm going to tuck this in right into there. This validates that. Here's the top of this. And we had the alert. Now the question is, where are we going to try and get into this thing? We had a nice move coming up, higher lows, higher lows. Now, if this thing, it didn't break through the top, we still have this. Now, here's what you're talking about, Brian, too, about where the higher time frame, is there much room? We got lots of room up here.
Right.
So if it breaks this area right in here, it can go all the way up. We've got 18 pips to the upside, and we have another 16 pips to the downside. So we have lots of room with this wedge alert. But right now I'm looking to see where it's actually been making, after it broke the bottom here, is as a high, a higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, a higher low. But right now this candle right here is going to be of interest to me. And actually in this case I probably almost want to draw another secondary wedge in this thing because of just by the price action that this thing's had. Let's see if I can find that. You take it. Yeah, let's just take it like this. So right now, if it breaks to the top of this wedge here, we could probably take it long. It looks like it's trying to break to the downside. So I'm going to be looking at another wedge inside, because this is such a big area. We're talking a big area in here. So we want to see if we can, all we're trying to do is get our 7 pips in the same direction that we need to be going. It needs to be breaking this candle pivot before, and I like to see it close below here. So I'm going to be looking at a wedge that's going to include that. I'm going to take this one to the high. We don't know where this is going to be, but we want to keep it somewhere down in the low part and then bring this back up to where we get a little trend wedge. And I'm going to take it right about to here because this 62 is important to me. So this is where we're looking at. And I would say, well, I'm going to try and tuck this in up a little closer. We had the alert. I'm going to tuck it in right in here. That's what we're going to do. We have to respect this pivot. Here's an anchor. I'm going to use this one right here. I mean, still use that. We don't have the third hit, so we have to just kind of live with that. I want to see a close below. How much room do you have? I'm just looking to see how much room do you have between the A and the C. I'm going to measure that. That's 5 pips. I would like to see this thing, the candle close below the A before I would take this thing short, with all my moving averages going in the correct direction. And so I'm going to draw a little line here. And I want to see it close below this. I want to wick to close below. Certainly want to see a close below the C, and I'd like to see a lower close below the A, because if not, all it's going to do is say that there's more buyers down here to push it back up again. Now that's going to be getting pretty close to the wedge, to the bottom of the wedge. See if there's enough room. If we get a close there, we still have 9 pips. If we get a wick comes down, breaks the A, closes, we still have another 7 pips till we get to this part. We could be well in the trade, and then we'd be looking at, if it breaks this area right in here, we'd be looking at taking I'd be looking at this as being a target area from the C area to the bottom of somewhere below this blue candle here. This is a strong, you can see this is a strong move up. This was a strong move up. There's a little bit of basing here. So it was like a rally, base, rally. And now it'll probably come down to probably retest this area. So this would be my target zone if I take this thing short. Let's see, is that about where we are now?
Yeah.
Is this a replay or not? Am I doing a replay? Yeah, I guess I am.
You're up.
Oh yeah, I am doing a replay.
Yeah,
so I'm looking for a close. I'm looking for a close below this A. Now this is a strong wick. You can see there's a lot of buyers that push that thing right back up again. So I want to see a close below this area right here. Let's see if I think I made a new template for this. That must be my other chart. And we're going to be looking to sell at this entry to sell right in here. So let's play the game. Still hasn't closed below. Not yet, not yet. There's our close below. So now I can take this trade. Now that I got this confirmation, all of our moving averages are clear. But now if we get filled right in this area, now the question is, do we have enough room to get our 7 pips to the downside? So here would be our target, somewhere in the middle of this. Let me put my target zone up. We're looking for 7 pips. Oops. Here's our 7 pip range. And let's see, so here's where our target would be. Let's see if we can get it. If we get the break of the wedge enough to get our fill. Don't know where this one's going to go.
We never do.
We never do. And there it is. There was our target, and now it's right back into this. And now I'd be looking that now that this part is being set, we'd be looking to see. I almost. Let's see. Where's our other purple one here? Is that? I didn't have that one. Okay, never mind. So that would have been our trade right there. And it keeps on
What a
going.
move.
Nice
Wow.
big move.
Crazy.
But that's all based on U.S. strength right now.
As all, yeah, we look at our
You look at all the U.S. pairs except for the U.S.
all the U.S. pairs. Yeah, and you can see where the U.S. the 15-minute. Well, this is on the 5-minute chart. But if you look at the other time frames, you'll see that the U.S. is strong by the Euro U.S. has a big spread of 6-1, 7-3, all well within our tolerance that we're looking for. And that's where you can catch these nicer moves, especially when all the moving averages are in the right direction. And now you can actually just follow this. Now you're in the trade, you're already broken through your zone. Now you can just follow this thing down and you can just keep on moving your stop. That was our entry up there. And you can have your visual stop at the top of these pivot areas. Stop zone. And just try and keep it above the, depending on how much wiggle room you want to give and how much you want to risk giving back, you can just follow this moving average, this yellow moving average on down. Let me get this thing blowing up here a little bit. And actually, that may be where we are right now. What time is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much where we are right now. That's the end of the move. So that's where we are right now.
Well, I think the end of the move until it catches back up. It's kind of what the Kiwi US is doing right now too. US is number 7, Kiwi is 0, but yet the price is moving upward. I just think it's been such a strong move down that it's just retracing a little bit before it decides it wants to fall back down again. Because obviously the news was extremely good for us. Kiwi must have had some bad news, but the US and the Kiwi haven't moved since we've been on tonight.
Yeah. We have a little chart here that actually will, whoops, wrong one.
Never say whoops.
Yeah, I'll say whoops. This is basically our RCS tool on 4 different time frames. I've got this on the 4-hour. You can see that and right now on the 4-hour the dollar is still number 5. This is a 30-minute. Dollar is the strongest on the 30, on the 15, and on the 5. So we would not want to be trading against the dollar in any of these, and you'd be looking to see which is our weakest pair. And we're looking at right now on the 30-minute chart, we've got the New Zealand down here. So you could be trading the U.S. New Zealand, or you could be trading the Euro U.S. Aussie, or the Euro, even the U.S. CAD. And that's a good thing to use if you want to, especially if you want to start trading different pairs. You can use this tool to say, well, let's see, maybe I want to try to do like a yen pair, like the euro yen. Let's take a look at you can take a look at our euro yen chart. We know what the euro US is doing. Let's go to put it on a euro yen. And we know that the yen was stronger, so we'd want to be trading this to the short side. And we look at here, here's a nice strong move. Here's a nice retracement. This is actually a little wedge right in here on this 5-minute chart. So you can go and draw it.
That's what I do in the morning.
Here's a low. Oops, it did whoops again. Here you go.
On the 5, Brian, or on the 15?
I'm doing 30-minute and 15 to get my wedge, pre-wedge basically is what it is. And then I'm really focusing on the 15.5 RCS at the same time.
See what I'd be looking at on this particular case. I would be looking at, there's our nice move down, nice little wedge right here. I just what I did was I just picked a bottom, a low, a high, a higher low, and then I just brought this D down to where both those lines meet. And I could, actually it'd be nice if I can take this B over here where this little drop, there's a little drop, a little base, drop, retest it up here, it came back down. So now I can move my D over this way. And there's my wedge.
So
And
you're
I
able to put, excuse me, I'm sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
You're able to put the B behind the A, like prior to the A. Because basically you're just looking for the pivots, right?
You're looking for, yeah, what I did with it, in this particular case, what I did was on this 5-minute chart, if you look, and I allow myself to do this, you had a strong red candle coming down.
Sure.
And you had this little, there's a drop, here's a little base, and then it dropped again. Well, this little base is significant. So I could do one of two things. I could just take it all the way up to here, so that's where the move started. I could bring it down to just get a little, I just use the top of this little blue candle and use that as my anchor. Here's my hit. Here's my anchor. Here's my hit. Now, I don't have the third hit out here yet. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking to see is where am I going to get that third hit. So if I mean, let's just take this other tool that we had here. That's the one I want. So we have the trend. So here's our trend line. Well, we don't have my arrow. I have the arrow at the end of this trend line. So somewhere out here is my third hit. We don't know where it is. But if we get a break of this, if we get a break of the C, what I want to do is I want to see a break and close below the C. I want to see a lower wick and a lower body. So if I can get a close below the C, or break of the C, and I want to see a close below the lowest red body in here, preferably, right, or you could go with the blue body down here with the A. So I want to see, basically I want to see a close below the C, because all that, if I don't get a close below this, all that means that there's more buyers down below here from this area. Now, once it breaks this whole wedge, looking back and see, you almost have to look back on a daily chart to see where the low is going to be. Let's see if we can find that. Let me just take all these tools off here. So right now, from a higher time frame, nice move down. This is the daily chart, and you can see that this whole daily move started way down here, and it's trending on up. So here is a nice move up, pull back. Nice move up, pull back. We're already below this area. So this is going to be the next area that I'd be looking at for a target.
And for those using Alexander, you're loving this right now, or Einstein.
Yep. And so here's...
They've been short the euro yen for a while.
Yeah, so here's a nice move up, came back down. Here's the pivot low. You can see this low candle right here. That's as low as it got, but here's the body. So we had a little pivot low. So I'm just going to put this here, and here's my new demand zone on a daily chart. I come up here on the top part, and I'm looking to see, here's a nice little trend. Where do I have a trend coming to the downside? So I can put a trend line here to the daily. Here's an anchor, here's a hit. I'm going to move this all the way down because I don't have that third hit yet. It's somewhere along in here. And I'm going to move it from this trend right here. And you can see right now it's testing it right here. So it's testing this trend. Here's an anchor, here's a hit. Here's our next hit. I can move this all the way out. Here's our next hit. Now, we don't know where that's going to end right now, so I still have to be kind of careful about predicting that. But it would not surprise me at all if you have this area right down here as a demand zone. Would it not make sense to maybe expect it to be somewhere along in this area where we may get the hit of the trend line? Because it's got to get through these little wick areas, because it did find buyers at that level to take it on up. Now we have here's our wedge, here's our alert. Let's go back. Well, we don't have an alert yet. We're just trying to pick one out here.
Right.
Let's go back to our 15-minute chart.
There's been no.
Yeah, this is not an alert. So this is one just picking using the RCS tool to pick a pair to see where we could possibly get a wedge. So we have our other areas all drawn. Here's where we're looking at this thing to be hidden. Right now we can use that, but it may go lower. Nice move down. Here's a wedge. So if it breaks this, it could go all the way down to here still. we don't know if this is going to be fixed or not because we know that it's somewhere along in here. Let's just take it down to, let's find a, maybe find a fib line. How about a blue fib line? Might be a nice place to go. So let's take it maybe down to below the price to our blue fib line or to a green fib line, which is, it signifies a demand zone. This may be our target. So if we have a nice drop, pull back, get it on a 5-minute chart to see if we can move this out a little bit. Here's our wedge, so we're going to draw our wedge like we did before. Anchor, here's an anchor. Here's the low, here's a high. If we get the break below, and here's a green fib line right here, that's significant. If we can get it close below the C, then we can be looking at maybe heading on down below, or at least down to here, down to the A. From the A to the C, we have 9 pips. So it breaks the C. Depending on how good of a fill you get, you could take it down to the level of the A, and you're made your pips. If it breaks to the upside, you've got the 62 coming in right now, so you have to be real careful with that. You'd want to see a close above the D, just like we had down here with the A. I want to see it close above the D, but you also, if we get a candle that comes up to, is coming right up into the 62 on this 5-minute. If we look at where our 62 is on our 15-minute, it's all the way up here, so let's mark that so we know where that is for a target. 15 minutes, 62. And now you know that if it breaks this, it's probably going to, this one's still coming down, this one's still coming down. The likelihood is it's going to break out the bottom because we know that the yen is stronger than the euro, and the yen is the second pair we wanted to go short. And that's how we'd analyze this. Come over here to a 1-minute chart. We have everything is still in a line. We have a 62 here. And I really like it when I get all of these moving averages tucked in together. I'm not seeing it, where they all kind of consolidate, right? And then it breaks a pivot high or breaks a significant high, candle high. Here's a nice move down. I would see that if this thing breaks down to the upside, I'd want to see it break above this candle. We have a little wick up here, came down, retested. That's the first test. But you can see we're wanting it to go short because of the yen. This is a pullback. We're going to get the cross of the 5 and the 13. It's going to be looking to break this wedge. And again, our target's going to be way down here. So if we get a close below the C, we can take the short. Now, this is not a wedge alert, but this is how we can use our tools to help find these things. Enter to sell with a close below the C area. And we do have this blue candle here, so I definitely want to see a close below. And actually, I've been drawing these ranges a little bit like this. Enter this area to close. And I say, and right now, I'm going to see a close somewhere in here, at least a wick down below. Because we have this blue candle, I want to see a lower close in this blue candle, the bottom of the blue candle. I want to see a close somewhere in here or below. Here's our trend line. Our strength is to the downside, and let's see what happens here. We may actually get something here. I'll get my, I'll set this up for a demo trade here. And we're going to be looking at a potential sell. If it comes into this area, I'm going to be looking at a target to take a trade of, well, let's just say 123.61. So what I'll do is I'll do a sell stop, 123.61. Put an 8 pip target, 12 pip stop, and say sell stop. So I'm going to put it on. And now if I can get a close in here, I should be in the trade. Now, if it comes in here and wicks out and pulls back out again, and it gets me filled, I'll probably be filled. Price will probably come down into here, and you may not. It will be filled before the price ever actually hits that line because of the spread. We have a 1.6 spread, but if it comes in here, fills me, and then pops strongly back again, I'm going to be looking to get out. I may get out of that trade, but I'm just suspecting that with the strength that we have, it's going to come down, close inside this box, and then keep on going. And if I do get filled, I'm going to want to have my stop. I can tuck my stop in above the 62, and I would be looking at above this, probably this candle right here. And that's about where I can probably bring it in just a little bit still. We'll see if I get filled first. I'm gonna keep my stop. I'm gonna keep my stop up here, but I want to be vigilant if I get a close above. This will be my visual stop zone right in here. That's my stop zone right there. So we'll see if I get filled, and we'll see. And watch this candle. You'll see when this thing gets filled. You're probably going to see that it's going to be filled before it probably just before it gets into that box area. Right now, this trend line is still holding. And if we look at the other three charts, oops, get over to look at our other charts, and we're going to be seeing what the strength is. Still strong by 5, strong by 5. Everything is still strong to the in favor of the yen to go short. So this is kind of what you can do when you don't get the alerts.
A quiet night. There hadn't been one yet today.
It's been quiet. And this is pretty typical on these evening trades, is that you'll get into a trade and you can sit in this thing for several hours, which means if you get into it at 9:30, 10 o'clock, you could be looking at this thing not to really break until 10, 3 o'clock, sometimes before the London session opens. Do we have any questions, comments?
Nothing in the chat box.
Yeah.
Easy night.
Yeah, so if we don't get too many more alerts, then we'll see how this thing plays out, if it breaks down or not.
Yeah, I'm not big on taking trades this time.
No.
Here we go. A little later.
We're getting the break of the wedge coming in, and we'll see if we just got filled just now. We just got filled. Strong candle down.
That's nice.
Pulled back. This hasn't closed yet. This is a 1 minute candle. And what time is it right now? It's at it just closed a 5 minute candle before this. Yeah, right now this is a new 1 minute new 5 minute candle that's starting right now. That's usually a good sign if you get a 5 minute candle closed, then you get a strong move on the first wick of the candle.
Al?
Yes.
The dotted line that's right in your blue box, right underneath the enter on close.
Yeah.
That pertains to where? Like further back, left,
the C.
right?
It's basically the C.
Yeah, it's your C line.
That's the C line.
Oh, like the one above it in the middle of this
one, this red one.
Yeah.
Yes. That's just my order. That's
your orders. Okay. All right.
That's just the order. Yep.
Okay. I wasn't positive, and I'm like, I didn't know if it went over left.
No. Yep. And then we have so right now. So I want to see and actually we did get this red candle here did not close below here, but this one looks like it's going to. And what's nice about where I have this, where I anticipated this I anticipated with the momentum down here, with being a big spread. I want to get a close. I want to see this get broken, this C get broken, but I want the strength to be such that it's going to close. That this candle is going to be strong enough to the downside to close below the bottom of this blue body.
Are you're already in this though, right?
I got filled. I anticipated getting filled. Now I did get filled. Now if for some reason this thing would have just wicked down and came right back out again, I probably would have tried to find a place to get out because it didn't really confirm, didn't do what I wanted to confirm that it was going to. I wanted to get filled in this zone. The only way you can do that, if you have a 2-pip zone, the only way you can do that is to project that it will do that with the strength and everything else. And so if, again, like I said, it could have just come down here, wicked me in, got me in, because it got me in when the price didn't even get into this blue box. Just as I barely got into the blue box, it got filled.
Yeah.
And if it came back and tested the wedge, I'd be okay with that. But if it started closing above back into the wedge, I probably would want to get out of it because I'd be looking for a stronger pullback.
Well,
Now
your
we did
strength
get
meter is still 6 and 1. So
yeah. Now we did get a wick below the C, but we really didn't get got it closed right at where the C is. I really didn't get it closed below the box. I got it closed in the box. So basically, it did make close out with lower lows, and we did get a lower low, and so we are getting there's a pivot high, lower high, lower high, low. Now we do have the lower low off this break. But up until we had this break of the wedge, we had a low, a high, higher low, lower high, higher low, still a lower high off this blue candle, and then then the wedge got broken. And now it's going to come back up, probably retest the wedge, and but all my moving averages are still good. So if this thing is going to continue down, I should not be getting a major break of the wedge or this 13 moving average.
and your momentum.
And my momentum is getting a little bit weaker but we'll just have to see how this plays out here.
Al, I'm going to need to bug out. I got some schoolwork to do.
I don't think
there's no real alerts happening. So this
I think we'll probably cut this thing a little short
in.
tonight. It's 10:30. It's 10. We've been at it for an hour or so.
Yeah, and I'm surprised we haven't had one alert. I'm a little shocked. At least one.
That's been pretty typical, not getting alerts in the evening. I'll say.
Oh, and that's all you had to say.
Yeah.
There's
the alert. As soon as I said it.
Did we just get one?
Yes.
Yeah. U.S. yen ascending.
Interesting is that I just got on the beta test that I'm doing. I got an alert to sell the British yen. U.S. yen. Okay, let's take a U.S. So we're still looking at weak.
Good night, Brian.
Good night, everybody. Thank y'all for coming. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks, Al, again.
All right. Thanks for coming in, Brian.
You are a hero, man.
Yeah,
I'm highly impressed.
So, well, thanks.
Y'all be good. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you.
All right, Brian. This is only. Does anybody have any questions? We have a few people that's still left in here. Anybody have any questions?
We have Igor and Rostin.
If you have any questions, raise your hand and I'll turn your mics on. You're free to talk. This is open mic.
Open mic, like a
karaoke. I'm starting to call it Open Mic Fridays on Friday mornings. Okay, so we did have an alert. Let's just go up. Let's see how my.
It was ascending.
I'm gonna keep it. I'll have to keep an eye on my other. Well, shoot, I'll probably forget what it was. A euro yen is what we had. And it's starting to go against me there. But anyway, okay, let's go to the U.S. yen. I'm gonna clear the chart. Start from scratch. 15 minutes. Lots of wicks in here. I already don't like it. But we had a alert with a U.S. yen ascending at 10:30. Slide this over to my US so I know where I'm at. 10:30, I'm going to go with a vertical line. 10:30, there's my alert. Ascending, I'm going to start low and go to the high. So here's my trend, my wick here, there. Come up high, higher low. There's a little bit of a higher high. So that's kind of broke with that. And so we have there's a high, low. So we do have if we started off over here, there's a high, low, lower high, higher low, and now we just broke this high, this one, off the alert. So this thing could very well be going to the upside. We have the US a little bit stronger than the yen, so the dollar is stronger, so we're looking to possibly break to the upside. I'm going to tuck this in here so we have ascending on both sides of this thing right now. And I'm going to be looking for a target zone of the previous high. Now, do we have a trend? I guess is the question. Do we have a trend developing? And I see one right in here. So I'm going to put this trend line on from here to here. And we have a anchor. Here's the near hit. And I think if we move this over to where the D is, we're probably going to find out that we have just the wick. So we have an anchor, a hit, and then we have the alert. Where's my D? I'm going to put this right up in there, put the D right in there. So right now, if we have a break of this whole area, I'm going to be looking at, let's see if I take it down here a little bit. It's pretty much the same point on that. So I'm going to just kind of flatline this. Oops, wrong one. I'll flatline this to here. Use this over my anchor. If I get a close above, I'm going to be going long with it. Right now, we're inside the wedge. Let's see if we can tweak this a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and tuck this in right here with that. That's a common point.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit of a higher high, it's a little bit of a higher. So I would say right now, if that break's going to close above, we're looking at going all the way to this area right here. So this is going to be our next target. This is the highest peak before, and so we're going to look at this as a target. Here's our alert. And here's the bottom of the wedge. Now, did we draw the purple one on this one? Is there a bottom
Not
one
on
here?
the lower one, no.
I don't know. We didn't do it on the lower one. Let's see if we can find one on go back to the time here. Let's go back to a daily chart.
That's ugly.
We have a zone right here. Let's mark that. I'm going to look at this wick right in here for a daily wick. Call that our demand zone. It may be coming right into our demand zone. Let's go back to our 15-minute chart. Yep, this thing's coming. If this thing breaks the wedge, it's coming right up into a zone where we're looking at a daily demand zone right in here. Let's go to 5-minute chart. Anchor, hit. And we have our zone down below here. And let's go to a 1-minute chart and see where our moving average, let's go check the moving averages. Our moving averages they're out of sync here. It's coming down to bounce off of a 62 on the 5-minute. It's consolidating on the 15. So it's bouncing off of a 62. This is all consolidating right here. So I'm not going to be real anxious to do anything with this one right now. I have a slight little trend line going off of this. Let's go to a 1 minute chart and see what it looks like on a 1 minute. I'm going to tuck this in, use that for our, and we have this coming in there. That's right, all in the same spot. And we have a moving average or moving over. They're all in the right direction on the 1 minute. And we have our secondary wedge that we can be looking at. We have some basing under here. We have the D up here. That's another spot for the D. And we're coming down to, I'm going to bring it down to where it breaks the, and bring it, I'm going to straight line that and move it on up to about this area right here. SCB, A, yeah, I'm a flat line from the C to the A, or the A to the C, right like that. So if we get it closed below the A, we could take it short if everything is in alignment. But right now, everything is so tight and so slow, I don't see that I would want to take it. We only have, well, on this 1 minute chart, there's 6 pips right there between this point and this point. So there is some range on this. And it looks like we're down to just the last few remnants of people, but we're starting to go to bed.
Yes, Igor, you and I.
Yeah, I don't see anything worth staying up for this trade right now.
No problem.
And so right now we're going to have
since early this morning, so
yeah,
talking a lot. So
I've been talking a lot.
Appreciate everything you've been doing.
And so right now we have a nice little trend coming here.
Mm-hmm.
It's be nice if this thing would just, and you can see we can line up our little trend with this. This is kind of following this area.
Mm-hmm.
And we could use this for the D. Let me move this over. We can use this for the D, and here's our upper trend. We're going to flatline this, bring these points together.
Oh, okay, yeah, flat line there, right.
Flatline this and see if we can get the break below the C here.
Mm-hmm.
There was some buyers that drove it on up to this. We're having the crossover with moving averages, but I'd like to see a close, a wick below and a close below the AC line.
Mm-hmm.
Take it
Right.
short.
And then there's our bigger wedge.
And then here's the big
lower
wedge on
line.
the top part, and then this lower line is going to be the bigger wedge. Yeah, this is going to be the orange one.
Right.
Boom, there we go.
Great.
Make sense?
Yes, it does.
And right now it's coming pretty much right to the peak here. Seeing how it's going to break. So if it breaks to the upside, if I get it closed below the, at this point I'm going to see it close below the A or close below the, probably the D, I'm going to guess. I'm going to tuck this in. Yeah, I'll basically use this up here. I used to use that.
Mm-hmm.
And do I have enough room if it breaks up to this point? Let's see where this one is. From up here down, that's 3 pips. It would have to close. I'd be looking at this for the smallest target, this pivot up here.
Mm-hmm. Now, why are you moving them again, Al?
I'm just trying to, because one is it's not set yet. We did have the alert, so actually I kind of like the fact we have. I'd usually like to tuck it in here. That's what I haven't been doing here. Okay. Here's my. See, I need to move this out. So if I put my D here, I'm running out of wedge.
Yes.
So I need to move this someplace where I can extend this out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's pretty much why I'm doing that.
Okay.
I guess sometimes I'll free float the D.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't put it here because there's not enough room to extend it.
Right.
But we can draw another trend line. We can draw this from here to here to here.
Right.
We could do that. I mean, that's another possibility to do that like that.
Now, wouldn't that be a stronger line because we have 3 hits already?
The fact being on a 1 minute chart, it's
Okay.
not so much.
Okay.
And also, like even like where the C is right now, it hasn't closed below the A, so we had the alert. Now, the question is there? We did get the close. We did get the close below the C. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's coming back to retest the wedge.
Right. The U.S. and yen are fighting for last place.
And the U.S. and yen are fighting for last place. So right now they don't know where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't know where it's going to go. The fact we got to break below the C, let's see how much room we have to a target on this. From the 105.04, we're talking about 2 pips, 3 pips.
Yeah.
Not enough to make it worth our while.
Because the yen pairs, you have that difference. I mean, it looked like it, but
yeah,
in actuality.
yeah, that's right. And that's exactly right. So right now I'm going to pass on this trade, and it looks like it's just you and I and Igor. And Igor, do you have any questions at all before we go? We're going to shut this thing down here. If you're still there, are you even there? If you're there, could you let us know that you're there, just so that we know that we're not talking to ourselves? And I think that's okay. All right, Christine, we'll see you. We will see you in the morning. Okay.
Sounds great. Have a good night,
night.
Steve.
You
Take care.
too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.